I remember the very day that I said I'm changing my situation.
We're talking with Adam Silvis, who's from Pennsylvania, and we talk about the moment he knew he wanted to buy land and some crazy leasing stories from over the years. If you have dreamed of owning land, you probably have had the I want to buy land moment. This is his.
My wife, when I met her, had never met someone that hunted before. So she was from Massachusetts, and she had no idea the gravity of of what she was entering.
She didn't know. Yeah, she didn't know what she got into.
No, she didn't know what she got into. She started to get into hunting and started to go hunting with me. And so when we moved back to Pennsylvania, we were hunting a lot of shared permission property, and that's mostly what was around here. And the experiences of that were not good, in terms of what you would run into, even predating like Onyx or, some of these other land ownership apps. People had no idea where they were hunting. They just would drive until they didn't see posted signs, and that's where they would go hunting. So I remember the very day that I said I'm changing my situation. I was hunting with her. It was her very first time. Climb up into a tree stand on a piece of property that I specifically had permission to hunt on. I called the landowner. He was a friend of my grandparents. He said, nope, I haven't let anybody else on there. It's all yours, hunt away. And so I got everything set up. I was planning on taking her out for our Pennsylvania gun season. Breaks daylight and there's a guy like 40 yards in front of my tree stand. So I get down and I go to talk to him, and it just like immediately the guy got belligerent, didn't know the landowner, the whole deal. So I got my wife, we left, and yeah, from there I was like, I'm not doing this anymore.
That would do it. I mean, and that's a really good point. Was it that point when you decided you want to buy land, or was it growing up as you lost access to, you're like, I have the clear goal, I want to own some ground in order to enjoy how I want?
Yeah, it was definitely just growing up, but it's only a reality at a certain point. You've got to get into the financial standing to do that. But I saw the writing on the wall, but when you're able to hunt, you have lots of hunting access, the pressure is not there, right? When you've got all the hunting opportunities in the world, the pressure is not there as much to buy a place. But it was at that point that I was like, I've got to do something.
Talk a little bit about, I think you were very organized with how you were going to end up buying a piece of ground. So at that point, I guess, some decisions that you made along the way that helped set you up in order to end up buying a piece of ground.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first thing I went at, specifically that day, I went to my father and I was like, we need to lease piece of property, right? Everybody hates that. They hate the idea of someone leasing something up and blocking other people out. But I was like, we've got to lease a place. I'm feeling it. Like, we're not going to have a place where we can even go out and hunt. And I said, if I can't hunt here, I won't live here, right? I moved back here for that reason. If this isn't an option, there's no reason for me to be here. So I went and talked to a couple of landowners, and at that point, nobody leased property in my area. Like, that wasn't even a concept.
What year was that roughly?
2014 or 2015.
Okay.
And, I definitely more popular in other states, but in my area in Pennsylvania, wasn't even a thought. Now it's mainstream. Every property is leased up. But, back then I went and talked to the landowner. He's an elderly gentleman, told me no. I went back and talked to him again. Started to warm up to it, just like persistence, I wore him down, and maybe talk to the virtues of it, because I was learning as well, right? And I made it attractive from a price standpoint, just with the fact that my father and I, were able to split that cost. But that's really what got it in. And then the leasing thing is good, but it comes with all of its negatives, and
yeah,
I'm sure you're aware.
Yeah, I mean, I lease a farm and it's in a really good neighborhood. And it's so frustrating to know if I could just do a handful of things, this place would be so much better. But you're kind of hunting for luck is kind of what it feels like, where even the house. So tomorrow's actually the 1 year of actually living where I live now. And just even looking at what I was able to do in 1 year from the year I bought it and going into the fall to what it looks like now is drastically different. And I would assume that the success will be, better as well. So to your point, yeah, it's great. It's awesome. It's a great starting point, but to the same point, there's nothing like owning your own piece of ground.
Yeah, there really isn't. And there's a lot of unpredictability in leasing, which I think leasing is a great start, right? It gives you, it gets you in the game. It gets you into maybe a bit of the habitat management, if you could do some of those projects. And also just being able to hunt a property and hunt it right without needing to worry about all the other issues of, people blowing out deer and everything else. Be able to, target a buck, for example, and be able to put a plan together. So you do get a taste of it, but it just leaves you wanting more. I have, I still maintain that, lease in Pennsylvania here, but I've been through leases in Ohio as well, with lots of horror stories, in the leasing game. So, which I could talk about those.
Tell me one of your favorite horror stories so people are at least aware of. Ohio is an interesting state. That's where the Exodus headquarters is, obviously. And I get all the secondhand information from the guys at the office, but go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, the very first lease that a buddy and I did in Ohio, they weren't through a big mainstream brokerage company, but, most of the leasing goes through brokerages in Ohio. Found the lease, Southern Ohio, very rural, like dirt floor in some of these houses area. You might be familiar with some of those areas. Hunted the lease for the fall, bait state in Ohio, so we could run feeders out there. I went out for a hunt in January, and I'm like coming up the road to our lease. It was like this back dirt road, and it kind of went up this little hill. And I'm like coming up the hill, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, this looks so different. And as I'm like cresting the hill, I realized that our entire lease was completely clear cut, like in a matter of a month since the last time we had been out there. And it was just like this tangled mess of trees everywhere.
Oh my gosh.
So I called up the broker, and he had no idea. I called up the broker who I'd leased through, and he's like, I had no idea I was getting timbered. Our stuff was destroyed. It was a mess. And then, as a consolation, this company was no longer in business. He's like, look, I'll find you a better lease. I'll find you another lease, da, da, da. So we were out of the game for like a year. And then he got us into a lease in another county in Ohio. And we had it for like 6 months, paid our money, signed the contract. I was actually in Montana at the time, and my buddy is at the lease in Ohio hanging stands prior to season. And some side-by-side pulls up to him and says, like, who are you? And he says, he's like, we lease the property. Who are you? And I was like, my uncle owns this property. He does not lease this property.
Oh my gosh.
So and my buddy calls me from the property, and I was like, dude, no way. So I called up the broker, and, he had no idea what I was talking about. Turns out the landowner never signed the actual lease agreement, never actually leased the property. Here we are for 6 months thinking we have this lease. We actually didn't. I think the brokerage company did, but like, real mess. We did get our money back.
That's good.
Yeah, there's some more stories. But icing on the cake, I have another lease in Ohio now that is much better. Great relationship with the landowner, so it's not all bad.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's sometimes the runaround that you get when you lease properties. And I think to your point, the level of due diligence that goes into a lease, a lot of times, like, oh, this is available for lease. Okay, perfect. Sounds great. Looks decent on the map. Versus the due diligence when you go buy a parcel. I mean, I think sometimes the negative experiences with the leases maybe just with less due diligence because there's less long-term risk too. I hope you guys enjoyed this. My name is Jake Hofer, and I'm a real estate agent out of the state of Illinois, and it's my goal to help 100 people buy their first farm. Been doing that with the Land Podcast and clips like this every single Thursday and Saturday that are released here on the channel. And to be one of those 100 people, all you have to do is, if you're in the state of Illinois and I can help you, I'd be happy to do so. Number two, if you want to get connected with someone that can help you, reach out, and I'll be happy to get you in contact with an agent that I would personally do business with. And the last one is, if you just simply learn something from the content we're putting out, or you get inspired to take action, I want to know, get you out of that spreadsheet. I'm on a mission to help 100 people. Until next time, see ya.